My name is Linda Taggart. I am not an expert on graphics or communications. What I am an expert on is going down rabbit holes. So when I find something important to learn about, I will obsess over it until I have a really good handle on everything. So, of
I hear you,
course,
lady.
seeing some of the signs that at many of the protests, I'm like, we've got to do better with our messaging. There are a couple of problems that I noticed, everything from unreadable signs to signs for 10 different issues, if not more. And it makes it harder to get our point across. So that's what this is about. This is about understanding how to get our point across, how to work as a group to do it. And protesting, of course, is a fundamental American thing. From the Boston Tea Party on, protests have made change in our country. It can feel like protests don't do a lot, especially at first as we're ramping up as a country. But believe me, protests are part of what makes a resistance. They're part of what we're doing to tell our elected officials what we want or don't want from them, as well as to tell our neighbors what we're actually thinking. If we don't tell our neighbors, they're not going to know. And if they're on the fence, they'll go with the louder voice. So protests are an important piece of what we need to do to keep our democracy um, when it comes to protest signs, there are a couple of things that are really important, but the first thing is the meaning. The last few protests
What?
that I've attended did not have a clear meaning. And that's understandable. This was kind of our ramping up. This was our warm up to what's going on. This is new to a lot of us. So we didn't really have guidelines. Well, now we do. The April 5th protest, for example, the meaning of that protest is hands off. We want hands off our democracy, hands off our Medicaid, hands off our rights. Whatever it is, the main meaning of the one on the 5th is hands off. So the organizers of a protest need to be clear on the focus, because if we don't have one point that we are trying to get across, we won't get any point across. The next thing is it should be simple. Hands off is a primary example. It is two words and they say everything. Hands off. And they can encompass the dozen or more things that we're having to fight back against, but it's all hands off. So very simple. And pertinent is the other thing. It's very timely to say hands off on these issues. It's very important that we tell our government, such as it is at the moment, that we don't want them messing with what we have. There are three main reasons to protest. The first, make a stand. Say, this is my line in the sand. I do not agree with XYZ happening or ABC not happening, whichever it is. So the first one is to make a stand. The next one is to get attention. You want to let people know about your cause, or you want to let people know about something that is happening that should or should not be happening. You want to get on the news or get some information out that might be being suppressed. That's what the get attention part of a protest is. And then the last, and in my opinion, most important part, it's a call to action. What are we trying to do with the protest? Are we asking people to come vote for something? Are we asking them to come and protest with us? Are we trying to mobilize for one reason or another? Are we trying to get our elected officials to do or not something? That's that call to action. In hands off, we are trying to tell our elected officials, hey, stop messing with our government and with our country's support systems. And when you're thinking about a sign for a protest, what do you want people to either do or to feel? Those are the two main things that you're going to evoke with a sign. You want them to do what you want or feel what you want them to feel. And that can be afraid because they don't know what's going on, or that can be proud because you're a member of a union, or it could be you want them to go vote for Fred politician. you want to evoke a feeling or an action. And just think about your message too. Is it relatable? I'm going to talk a little about humor later in the presentation, but making fun of people can be a very powerful tool, but it can also be very alienating. So you want to make sure that you understand what message you're trying to send, what you're trying to evoke, and say, are you trying to evoke the feeling of solidarity, or are you trying to say, if you don't believe in this, you're not so good. So you've got to really think about that when you're making a protest sign. Your audience is really important. You need to know who you're talking to. If you're going to DC, you're probably thinking about talking to the entire nation. You're thinking about talking to our elected officials. You're thinking about talking to the news. If you're going to be in Hagerstown, you're talking to local politicians, or you're talking to your neighbors and saying, hey, wake up, this is happening. Or you're saying, hey, other blue dots in a red state. Uh, you're not alone. So you've got to know who you are talking to and where you're going to be. You want to think about the language you use. If you're going to be using slang or specific, I can't even think of the word, but specific words that are for a certain movement that you might know completely what they mean. Well, the person driving by in that 2 seconds that they see you know what it means. So you've got to think about what language you're using. And looking back at the demographics, if you're going to be supporting immigrants, do you not want signs in Spanish, Arabic, any other language that you have a large immigrant population of in your area? You don't want just English because just English is exclusionary when you're trying to say, hey, immigrants, you're welcome here. But if you are trying to get your point across mainly to local people, there's a higher percentage of white, locals, you might want to just stick to English. Again, it depends on who you're speaking to. You want to know, can it be aired on the news? Um, Things with profanity are not going to get on the news. They might be funny, they might be incisive or useful, but if you're trying to get on the news, you want to avoid profanity. You also want to think about inflammatory or adult themes. While, again, they may be very important messages, you've got to think about who you're talking to and what you're trying to do with what you're saying. So just not saying don't do it, just think about it. Next is the medium. And this is where I think more of us are struggling than so the medium is, what is your sign made of? Um, you want to make sure that you know who's bringing signs. Is it everyone brings their own signs? Or like with some union protests, the union will hand out pre-printed signs. Some organizations do that as well. Do you care if there are multiple organizations that are protesting and they all have different messaging? Or are you all trying to be on the same page? You need to make sure that you have very sturdy material, especially like the last protest I went to, it was so windy and a lot of people were having trouble holding on to their signs because of it. So make sure you have sturdy material, large text, and clear messaging. And then think about the how of where you're demonstrating, where you're protesting. What is the weather condition going to be like? Are there rules that you have to adhere to? Not just about whether you're on the sidewalk or whether you're impeding business or people moving around. You also need to think about, will this be able to be seen from the road as someone's driving by? Or if you're not targeting drivers and you're targeting a specific business, will that business be able to see the signs from inside the business? So you've got to think about your location and the conditions around your location. So I highly recommend, if you can get your hands on it, foam board. Foam board is very sturdy. It won't fall apart in the rain, at least not in 1 day's worth of rain. Um, and you can staple it to a post or you can hold it yourself. It's really very sturdy. You can also take two pieces of that heavy poster board and staple or glue them together. You want it to be at least 20 by 30 or larger. One of the things that I see so often is a piece of cardboard this big and then written in ink pen, and you can't read it even if you're standing next to the person. So you really want to make sure you've got those big pieces of board so that you can get your message visible. You also want to use both sides of your sign. Um, if you're holding it above you, the people behind you will only see a blank sign if you don't use both sides. And remember, there are going to be there may be, I should say, photographers from different angles or people walking by the protest from different angles. So think about using both sides for your messaging. You don't want to use, like I said, small pieces of cardboard, ink pens or small Sharpies, markers, that sort of thing, or an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Now, that's not to say, and please excuse me, allergy season has started. That's not to say that if all you have is an 8.5 by 11, you can't do that. But think before you go out to a protest about how you want to prepare for that, what you want to do. And remember, weather is a very important thing. One of the things that you'll notice as the weather gets better is the protest numbers are going to just explode because it's not cold anymore. The wind should die down, knock wood. Um, and people are not as uncomfortable going out when the weather is better. Make sure your markers or paint aren't water soluble because otherwise your sign will melt in the rain. Um, Make sure you firmly attach your stick to a pole, sorry, your sign to a stick or a pole so that if the wind picks up, you don't get it blowing away. And if you're going to be marching with your sign, think about how you want to secure it. If you're going to carry it, make sure it's really well attached, but you can make two, wear them like a signboard. You can put a sling like flag bearers have so that you can just put the stick in the sling and then you've got something to rest it on. You can put straps on the back of it so you can put your arm and just hold it. There are different ways that you can do it that will let you deal with the weather and deal with the conditions and still keep your sign very visible. And you also, when you're thinking about heat, you want to make sure that the sign is not going to be adding to the discomfort. So you don't want like a black sign that is going to just gather all that heat. Um, One of my first protests was in July or August, I think, and I wore all black and it was a mistake. So looking at this photo, which signs can you read and which signs can't you read? Even the ones that are written large are harder to read if they have more things. The let doctors be doctors, I don't know. Whoops. There we go. Let doctors be doctors has too many lines to see from a distance. Um, However, this one has many lines, and because of the color differences and the way all of the words are written large, you can see the whole thing. Um, this one, though, you couldn't tell what it is at a distance. So think about how your sign will look from a distance. Make sure you have contrast. You can use multiple colors. Like this one is great using multiple colors. But you want to make sure you're only using two or three. This one I think has four, including the black text. And keep everything very readable. Keep white space around it so that you can see what's being said. And I already talked about the back of the sign. And now you have your message. So you know what you're going to be saying. You know who you're going to be saying it to. Now you need to think about what exactly you want to put on that sign. Are you going to use some humor, some shock value? And when you're at a protest, look at the reactions people have to your sign. What emotions is it bringing up for them? Are you getting a lot of people that think it's funny? Are you getting people glaring at you? Are you getting people going, oh, wow, I didn't think about that? Look at the reactions of the people around you and think about what you made for your sign and what you might want to do the next time. So, funny is powerful. And the reason that funny is powerful is it is a way of saying truth in a safe way. It can also be very much misused, but it can be incredibly powerful. The sign here, you know things are serious when the introverts arrive. That's a great one because it says, hey, this affects everyone. Even people who don't like this thing are coming out because it is so important. And it's said in a funny way that makes you stop and laugh and then think, yeah, that's really true. And a study from Oracle found 90% of people were more likely to remember a brand's ad more if it was funny, while 48% said they didn't feel they had a relationship with a brand unless it made them smile or laugh. And you might think it's weird that I used a quote about an ad there, but that is very much what you're doing with a protest sign. This is an ad for whatever your cause is. It's an ad for whatever your belief is. You are communicating that to the people that are around you and trying to convince them. It's not I shouldn't say it's not manipulation because that's what ads are, that's what protest signs are, but it's a more noble manipulation, if you like. Just remember that funny signs can be really useful. So, as I said, we're trying to manipulate people. I know that sounds harsh and cold, but it is the truth of the matter. We're trying to get people to come around to our point of view. So when I say manipulate, I'm not like, ooh, let's secretly turn them bad by doing bad things. Not that kind of manipulation. This manipulation is trying to express what you want them to do and feel and use the information that you know to make that happen. And so a lot of advertising uses these same tips. And corporations do a lot of research into this sort of thing. Trust me, they know what colors you'll respond to. They know where to put things on the shelf. They know how big the text has to be for it to catch your eye. Governments do the same kind of research on their population. They know what kind of propaganda is going to get you to vote or not vote. They put tons of money into this. Now, protest messaging is a kind of psychological warfare. I already mentioned along those lines. You need to get your narrative out there. And so you really need to think strategically about what you're putting on your signs. On the next slide, I'm going to show you something that is kind of hard to think about. I'll have the link to the original article that I first learned about it. She does a much better job of explaining than I'm going to do in just a few minutes, but so I highly recommend you go find that article. But it's avoiding helping people uh, connect the thing you're protesting against with the thing you don't want them to be connected to. So, when you see a headline like Kennedy links measles outbreak to poor diet and health, citing fringe theories, you think that's a pretty good headline, right? You think, oh dear, fringe theories. But really, what your brain catches out of that is measles outbreak equals poor diet and health. And we know that's not the case. Or Musk blames Ukrainians for cyber attack on X. Experts aren't convinced. But you see in with the in your subconscious, you see in that first sentence, Ukrainians cyber attack on X. So you want to think about how you put things in your sign. You don't want to say Trump is against women's rights because then the brain actually subconsciously gets Trump and women's rights put together. It's a really weird thing the way human brains do, but it's just one of the things that we do. So just be aware of that when you think about it. And always remember that the first part is going to be more impactful than anything you say after it, because that's what people first will see, especially if they're driving by real quick. The first thing that they'll see is the top line. That's because we're all, at least most of us, are taught to read top to bottom, left to right. So think about that when you're putting your sign together. All right, here are some examples of signs that are not really effective. Um, the first sign, and I don't want you to actually answer me. You can put it in the chat if you'd like. But think about what is wrong with the three examples I have on here. So the first one says, if this was really about getting rid of criminals, then why did you elect one as president? And then it's got a hashtag uh, on racial profiling. So what do you think your first impression of this sign is? First of all, there's too much text. We've got 6 lines of text, including the hashtag. It's hard to read at a distance. I've got this zoomed in, but the original picture, you could barely read it. The red is very faint. If you wanted that red to stand out, which would have been a great tactic on this one, because it would have connected criminal to president, you would have needed the red to be a very bold red and have those words be thicker than the words around it, because that will get the eye connecting criminal and president. All right, so number 2, this one over here. Too much injustice to fit on one sign. What do you think? Why do you think that is not a good sign to take to a protest?
Let's read it
All right,
once.
so first, it's poor contrast. It looks great. It's obvious this person put a lot of work into it, but it's just too hard to read the letters against the back of the sign, even with the outlines on the letters. If that had been a lighter color or even white, that would have been ideal. And then think about how you're holding the sign. This is another practical thing. By holding it, you're covering up some of the letters. Her head is covering it. The heads of people in front of her will cover the other side. So just remember that you need to leave space for however you're going to hold it. You also need to think about, you can see that this sign is bending because it's not stiff enough. So if it bends, you might not be able to see the whole thing. But it is funny, which is another good thing. All right, this one is my least favorite of all. First of all, it's obvious he just drew it on, wrote it on with a Sharpie. The angles are different, the sizes of the letters are different. It looks like he used a pizza box top that was from a used box. It makes it seem like it's a spur of the moment thing. It seems like it's not something that this protester feels is an important issue, doesn't feel passionately about it. He just like, oh, here, I'll use this bit of trash to be a sign. Okay. Here are some good examples. Um, First of all, the top right one, enemies, foreign and domestic. This is a perfect use of that connecting the dots with the words. Enemies, foreign, Musk. Enemies, domestic, Trump. It doesn't use their names, but you recognize them right off the bat, and you know that they are your enemy. That's an excellently done sign. One in the bottom left, visually striking. First of all, you've got the bright green of the signboard. You have the hanger in the Statue of Liberty's hand, which gives you a small amount of cognitive dissonance because you know that the Statue of Liberty actually has a torch, but she's holding something that's not a torch. So that makes you do a double take, even though you may not realize it, because you're seeing that hanger there and you're like, wait, something's off with this image. Oh, it's that. And you might not think that consciously, but that's what you're going to get mentally when you're doing that. So you have an unexpected emotional reaction when you're looking at that. The words are short and simple and very well done. And the art is well done as well. And then last but not least, we have the bottom right one. We demand police accountability. Very clear call to action. What are we doing? We're demanding. And what are we demanding? Police accountability. Easy peasy to understand. Bright sign, big letters, and you can even see from the reflections that there's probably tape over it or some sort of plastic cover. So if it gets wet, it'll still be easy to read. So I highly, that is just basic but powerful. All right, so we are right at 8:30. I want to say thank you very much for attending this. I hope it was useful. I am going to stay on for the next half hour to discuss, have questions, etc. I did record this meeting and I will be recording our discussions as well. So if you want to know when I get this, I think I'm going to find a way to put it up on YouTube. You can send me an email at email address redacted, and I'll let you know when that goes up. Also, I don't have the link out just yet, but I'm doing a presentation next week on protesting safely. So the things you need to know about protesting, the things that um, will keep you safe while protesting, etc. Um, and I will put that link in the Indivisible of Washington County's Discord channel. I'll forward it to Eric. I'll forward it to the Pennsylvania Democratic Party or the Franklin County, Pennsylvania Democratic Party group. And you can always email me and I'll send that to you as well. Let's see. Will we have an access to the copy of the recording? Yes. Um, Volunteering for Cameron for years. Is that a politician? Oh, how do I know the theme? Like hands off. So, there are a lot of great websites out there. The Indivisible website, the Move On website, the 5051 site. There are a couple others I don't know off the top of my head, but those will have links to find out when and where protests are. And that's where I found out about this particular protest, and that it's hands off. I think there's even a hands off protest website, though I don't know the URL off the uh, top of my head. There's not always a national theme, which is correct. That's something that is new that I love. That we've got some organizations stepping up to help coordinate us. Sandy and Paul, I'm glad you found it useful. Everyone else, you're very welcome. Um, Lee, we didn't talk too much about things to support the signs. There was a little bit talked about. I like to use tomato stakes. I get the tall ones, and they're usually like an inch, inch and a half thick. That's what I like, and then I just use a staple gun to put them onto the sign. Let's see. Very welcome. Mobilize.us. Thank you, Amy. Yes, mobilize.us. That's a great website. It's the Democratic Party's site for protests. Thanks, Charlie. Um, handsoff2025.com. Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Lee. Will the Hagerstown protest focus on hands-off of any particular aspect of American life? Not to my knowledge. You'd want to ask that of the Indivisible group. I'm not in the Indivisible leadership. I am doing this just as a concerned citizen. Um, so I don't have any additional information on that. And now you guys are welcome to unmute and we can chat as you like. Thank you very much for waiting. Use symbols for organizations. Amy, that's an interesting idea. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Can
We
I
were
show?
talking about really simple signs. So if we put hands off and like the logo from the Social Security Bureau, or
Oh,
who else? Medicare has a
uh-huh.
logo. Um, you'd end up with like three things on your sign that
That's,
everybody should recognize. I like that,
yeah.
especially that one you had with Trump on one side and Musk on the
Mm-hmm.
other, and just that would seem to
Yeah.
me. But this particular one, where I mean, you might have a picture of the Constitution, um,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
That's clever. I like that.
Visuals are, oh, well, you brought it out right there. But thinking about this one, this particular one, for hands off, each of the organizations and things that they're trying to people are bringing up have very visible logos and symbols and such.
That's a great idea.
So I'll be
And
doing a sandwich board with some of that on there. I have to make up my mind which one speaks to me most.
Um, Charlie had a great point about the Burma shave signs. Those are an excellent thing. If you go Google Burma shave, I think at least most of us have some idea what that was. It was a brand, and they had, excuse me, they had a row of signs. So if you want to get involved with a couple of your fellow protesters, you could do an order of signs along the road, hands off our Medicaid, our Social Security, and so on. But it was a really great advertising campaign that really tied into the way people drive. Well, especially back at the time when they were
Years ago.
slower speeds, but since we'll be downtown. And Amanda pointed out that Hands Off had the organization has signs that you can actually print, or you can use them if you're able to. You can use them as a reference and draw it onto your larger sign. So you can be on the messaging for that particular organization if you like. So that's a good one there too.
This is Sandy and Paul. Can we show you a sign that we did?
Yes, please.
We took it to Staples and they laminated it for free for
Nice.
us. But I don't know, this is kind of a sign to get everybody to be a part of it.
So, can I give you some feedback on that?
It'll be on poster board.
Okay.
It says United We Stand, everyone, everywhere, all at once, democracy, freedom, justice, and peace.
Okay. Can I ask you something about your sign?
Yeah,
What are you trying to elicit with that? What do you want people to do or to feel from that sign?
to be united, to come together and say whatever you feel, like
Okay, so
hands off
that,
on this. I have another one that we're working on that says stop, um stop Musk, stop what are we?
No, lies, Musk lies.
Huh?
Trump lies, Musk lies.
Yeah, Trump lies, Musk lies, truth please, democracy.
okay,
And then the other one is hands off healthcare, hands off Social Security, hands off children's education,
okay,
and so on and so forth.
okay.
And it's kind of big letters here, and then it's bullets.
Mm-hmm.
It says hands off, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's bullets saying healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
education, Social Security, healthcare.
So the second one it made me think of something that I'd meant to include in the presentation and I didn't. Um, if you can avoid using the names Trump or Musk or Hegseth or whoever, it's actually better not to use their names. You can use things like the Orange Felon or I can't think of a good one that's not profane off the top of my head for Musk. But when you use their names like that, that actually gives them a boost because people are A, seeing their name, and B, because we all know repetition is how we learn things as human beings. So we don't want them to see the name over and over and think, "Ooh, lots of people are talking about fill in the blank." The other thing is that when you use their names, that gives them a jolt. I mean, we've got to admit, Trump is a narcissist. He
Mm,
loves what he
yes,
loves
he
having
does.
his name being said by people. He doesn't care how. He just wants people to talk about him. So if you think about that, think about referring to them in ways that would not make a narcissist happy. That would not give them that jolt.
Yep, you were absolutely right there. Yep.
Not to poo-poo the signs, because I'm sure you're working hard on them
Oh,
and it's a great idea. I just wanted to add that little aspect of it, give you something else to consider.
all right, let me ask another question. With that sign, I was going to wear the Statue of Liberty outfit,
Cool.
mostly to show that, okay, you may have this sign, this sign. My part is if we all stand together,
Mm-hmm.
we can get something done. If we all come out together and stand together, and that's what we're doing with all these protests.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the ideas that sparks for me is if you take the sign that you showed at first, and when you
Mm-hmm.
put it on the poster board, add like a frame that looks like book
Yes.
pages. and you could hold it as a Statue of Liberty. And she holds that book, so you can have that be her book instead. Great way to tie it together.
Okay.
But that's just an idea. It's just an off the top of my head thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a Statue of Liberty on each side anyhow, in the big
Nice.
bold black.
Nice.
It's a thin one
Yeah.
that stands where she's holding
Uh-huh.
um that. But I think that is where I go all together. I keep saying if we all unite together and we all come together and each has their own sign, we're all gonna tell a big story.
True, true. All right, going once.
Thank you, Dale and Dominic here, and just thank you for all those tips.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You are
very
very
good.
welcome. I hope they're helpful. I hope that it helps as we're putting together all of uh all of our protest efforts over the next however long it's going to be.
This is Sandy. Can I ask where everyone is going to be at? Is there anyone that's going to be in Chambersburg, PA?
I'm going to be in Hagerstown.
So,
Yeah, we'll be in I have a question. When you're saying, fewer words, on the signs, I'm hearing. So, I would love to be able to have a sign that I can take to all the different protests that are designed for different things, but that still work universally. So
Well,
do you have any recommendations about?
there are pluses and minuses to that idea. The plus
Okay.
is you only need one sign. The minuses are that any sign that's going to go for all those different subjects is not going to be specific. It's not, you need to think about when you're doing that sign what you want to evoke. Now, you can say something along the lines of, and I'm just spitballing here, whatever we're protesting today, vote to make sure it happens or doesn't happen or what have you. Or whatever we're protesting today, voting will make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Something along those lines. And that's a little bit funny. I mean, it needs to be cleaned up a bit,
Right.
but it's a little bit funny and it still gets through a really important idea that would be helpful for all the issues that we're having.
Right.
So if you're going to go with one sign, make sure that it is still evocative. It's still got a powerful message that can be um, applied to all the different situations. You don't want it to just be, excuse me, you don't want it to just be some save democracy. Well, that's great. How?
Mm.
So think about how you can make it a little more impactful, a little more um, pertinent to what needs to be done. And frankly, poster board is cheap. Make 3 or 4 or 5 even. I've got I've got this tool rack in my garage that had some empty spaces, so I've been putting my protest signs in that. Um,
Okay.
So, make 3 or 4, and then the one that is closest to what you're doing is the one that you pull out.
Good idea on that
I
too.
I have to, I want to respond to someone that said about Chambersburg. I had not heard about anything organized in Chambersburg. I've only heard of the 5051 site. So I was planning on going to Harrisburg, but I live in Shippensburg and Chambersburg would be a lot closer.
yeah.
Yep,
No,
yep.
I think it was Charlie who sent some information to me, and I
Mhm.
will check out that mobilize.us.
Yes, definitely. I know that the Franklin County Democrats are doing something in Greencastle too, but
Oh,
I don't have details of that.
this one is supposed to be around the Chambersburg Square.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Very cool.
may I say something? I'm
Yeah,
Charlie.
please.
Anyway, I'm Sherry. Charlie and I organize the Franklin County Democratic Committee's protests.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you. We've been having protests every Saturday and Tuesday starting February 18th when it was 10 degrees out and all the way through April 12th. And so on Tuesdays, we protest from noon to 1 in front of elected officials' offices. And then on Saturdays, we protest again from 12 to 1 at a borough town square. So
Nice.
tomorrow we'll be in the Mercersburg town square.
We'll be
Last
in
week we were
when?
in Shippensburg. There were 51 of us at
Wow.
Earl and King.
All right.
So you go through the mobilize.us, or you can go on the Facebook page of the Franklin County Democratic Committee. Anyway, that's kind of how we've been doing it.
So what time is that in Mercersburg again tomorrow?
12 to 1. Our protests are always 12 noon to
Okay.
1 p.m. We find that we have a lot of, especially during the week, we have a lot of retired people who who have other things to do with their day. They don't want to take the entire day to do a protest. And some people do get tired. So we
Oh,
find
yeah.
that an hour is long enough.
Yeah. I don't know if I could make that. The reason that I wasn't going to the sign making party tomorrow with Indivisible of Washington County is I've got something in Chambersburg at 11, but if I'm heading home anyway, maybe I'll just like drop my husband off and then haul butt to town
Mhm.
because we
The
live
other
just
thing,
outside.
Okay, the other thing I want to let you know that the Franklin County Democratic Committee also has free sign making materials in the
Nice.
office. Now you could take the poster board or the plastic board, corrugated plastic boards with you, but you want to leave the ink pen or the markers and the stencils and everything there. But we have
Right.
free sign making materials, and our office is open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 12 noon to 4. So anytime
Nice.
our office is open, you can come in and make signs.
Very cool. Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate your sharing that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We appreciate that.
Mhm.
Any other questions, comments, ideas?
Just thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm glad that I am able to share. I really am.
It
Yep, I'll
always,
try to remember the next date, April 4th, so we don't get
Yes.
in trouble when we go to DC.
Oh,
Or
that's the
maybe
5th.
we would
Yes.
get, yeah, maybe we should get in trouble. I'm not sure.
Well, there's a difference between trouble and good trouble.
John Lou.
If you're, and I'll go into this more next week, but if you're going to do good trouble, you go into that prepared. You do not go into that willy-nilly. The kind of trouble and safety I'm talking about is the stuff that you don't want to have happen to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
My
Thank you.
pleasure.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
all for
you.
joining today. I really appreciate it. All right.
Thank
Take
Bye.
you.
care. Bye.